In today's video we will see how to configure an SSH connection to our server, how to secure it, and how to have a GUI experience with no VNC. So first we need to install OpenSSH on our server. Here is in Kali machine. When it's done, we go under the etc SSH folder and we will remove everything by using the following command. And this for the only purpose to reconfigure it with new keys. So dpkg reconfigure OpenSSH server. You have to be on root to do this. So if you have a firewall, specify a rule to allow the port you want to use with SSH. For me it will be 30093. Now we can modify the configuration file. And first I will just specify the port I want to use. The same port we set up on our firewall. And we restart our service. Now that we installed OpenSSH server on our Kali machine, we will try to connect to see what happens. Does it work? And I messed up my password. Here we go. We are on Kali. Now that we have successfully set up an SSH connection, change the default port, remove the root login, and enable password authentication, it's time to take security a step further. To harden our SSH server, we'll implement few more measures. First, we will generate SSH key, revoking password based entirely. By protecting our private key with a passphrase, we'll ensure an extra layer of security in case this password keys is compromised. Next, we will disable PAM. While PAM offers session processing and various functionality, like automatic keyring, mounting and unmounting file system, for our purpose we will remove it to minimize unnecessary access and potential vulnerabilities. With this change, we will have a more secure SSH environment. So we go back to our configuration file in our server, we open it, and we will uncomment permit root login and set it to no. We do not want anyone, even us, to connect with the root access. You just create a user that have sudo capabilities and it would be good. We will uncomment authentication with public keys and permit empty password connection, no, obviously. Lastly, set the use spam to no. As we said earlier, we want to minimize access. So to create our SSH key, we'll use our terminal. So we will use the command SSH keygen and specify an encryption that will be better than the default RSA with the command -t. And we specify also the hash rate. By default, he wants to save it in this location, which we'll agree with. But for the name, if you already have a public and private key, it will erase them, overwrite them. So we'll just change the name of our key. And for me, it will be ID Eden. Here is a very important step. We have to put a passphrase to our key. Otherwise, if the key is compromised, if the key is stolen, anyone with that key will be able to access our SSH. So to avoid it, we will enter a very strong password for it to be usable. And like when I say very strong password, let it be very strong. And here we go. Now you have our key, which is located in the .ssh folder. Here we have our private key and our public key. So we have many options to give the public key to our server, but we will use the more straightforward one, which is SSH copy ID command. We will specify the port for the system. Also specify the file, which is under user smokeless.ssh and the key. But we give the public key, not the private. The private has to stay in our client. And we specify our connection 192. Obviously I make a mistake on my password. Now that it's done, we will restart our SSH server. Now that our server restarted, and we connected without entering the password of the SSH server. So now we will totally disallow authentication with password. Now I will show you what happened with our SSH copy ID command. So if you go under SSH in the home folder, we will find an authorized key. If you cut our authorized key, here we have our public key that authorizes the connection with our private key that we have in our local machine. And here is to say, if someone connects to our SSH server, he needs his private key to match this public key for it to work. If we remove this file, the key does no longer work. So now that we set up this, what we want is to enable password authentication for only one purpose. It's like the only one that will allow to connect to our server are people who has that key. So how we do this? I will exit this and we go back to our Kali server. So now that we are back to our server, we go back to this configuration file and we will look for this specific line, the permit password authentication. We uncomment it and set it to no. You only want to do this when you already set up your keys, otherwise you will not be able to connect back. And here we save the file with Ctrl X, yes, enter. Now that we restarted our SSH server, we'll see what will happen if we don't have the private key in our local machine. So we just move .ssh to .ssh-backup. So he will not recognize that we have the SSH key, and we only try to connect. So ssh-p with our port to our Kali server. And permission denied. We cannot enter it. Why? Because we don't have the private key to match the public key. So now that we have our key, I'll move back. And now we will try to log in with a root user using our private key. And here again, permission denied. We cannot connect with the root user. But what happens if we just if you try to connect with the authorized user? And we are logging. Perfect. Now that we have secured our SSH environment, what if you need to have a GUI experience? So for it, we will install two packages in our server, which is NoVNC and X11VNC. Then we will prompt a command to use it only on localhost for more security with our SSH connection. So we install the NoVNC and X11VNC package. And keep in mind, there is many ways to do this. I just show you one of them. When it's done, we will start a VNC session. And we will choose to do this only on a loopback, making it more secure. We can only access it on localhost. And we will skip the X11VNC built-in HTTP function. So this will allow us to not install anything in our client. In fact, we'll use the NoVNC because it will give us an HTML5 experience. To make sure which port is used, we'll use the command ss and we grab the VNC. Before running the session, if you have a firewall, make sure to allow the port 5900 and 8081, otherwise it will not work. Now we start the no VNC, and as you can see, he's listening for a connection. So now that all is done, if you want to connect it, if everything is on your local network, you can go directly to Firefox or your browser of choice, go to the IP of your server and the port 8081. But in case you're not in the same network, you have to invoke it with SSH. So what we'll do here is this command. And this will tunnel NC server under localhost via our SSH. But since we are on the same network, we will not use this command. We just open our file, open the VNC HTML, and here we go. We have a GUI experience via SSH to our Kali server. Thank you for watching. If you find the video helpful, hit the like button. And if you need any more information, don't hesitate to let me a comment. I will be happy to answer it. See you soon.